Hello all, my name is Adam. This is the official SAT practice test number 1. Link to the PDF for this is available in the description. This video is for section 3 of that test, which is the no calculator math section. On the SAT, you'll have 25 minutes for it. This video is slightly longer to go into depth on all the topics. This is the first of these videos I'm recording, so don't be surprised if it gets better as I go. Let's jump right in. Problem 1, they're asking for a value of x, which simply means rearrange the equation given for x. You can do that by starting with x minus 1, multiply both sides by 3, gives you 3k. Add 1 to both sides, x is equal to 3k plus 1. Now plug in the value that they give you for k. You'll have x is equal to 3 times 3 plus 1. X is equal to 9 plus 1. X is equal to 10, which is answer D. Problem 2, they are asking for the sum of this expression. And the expression is given in terms of I, so you look at all of your possible answers. They are also in terms of I, which means you don't have to do anything with that variable. So this information they give you for I is equal to the square root of -1. That's just to try to confuse you. You don't have to worry about complex numbers. It's just a simple simplification problem where you can treat I as a normal variable. So combine terms, combine your constants. You'll have 7 minus 8, and then you can combine your terms that have I attached. So you can do plus 3i plus 9i. So 7 minus 8, you'll have -1 plus 12i. And that is available as A. A is the correct answer. Problem number 3. You have two individuals sending text messages, and what the problem is looking for is the total number of messages sent over the period of time. So write an equation that will find this. Total number of messages is equal to the messages sent by the first individual, Armand, plus the messages sent by the second individual, Tyrone. And at this point, you can see that this takes the form of total is equal to 1 plus another. So at this point, if you'd like, you can go back to your equation and see if that's enough to say, okay, I've solved it. You can eliminate A, it does not take the form. You can eliminate B, it does not take that form, but you're still left with C and D. So you have to go one step further. What are the total messages sent by Armand? Armand was sending text messages for 5 hours at a rate of M messages per hour. Tyrone was sending at a rate of P for 4 hours. 4 hours at a rate of P. You go back, plug those back in, you have 5M plus 4P, and your answer is C. Problem number 4. You can see that they give you a wall of text. Always start by asking what is it they're asking for, and what they're asking for comes at the end of this wall of text. What is the meaning of the 108 in this equation? So think they're asking for an equation. What's the only equation they give you? It's this P is equal to 108 minus 23D. And you can look and identify that is an equation for a line. It's the y equals mx plus b form of a line. Take that equation, rearrange it to look like the line form you're used to. P is equal to -23d plus 108. And they're asking for what does this 108 mean. So you know what the different values in the line form mean. This right here is slope or rate. And this right here is intercept or initial condition. So at this point, look at all your answers. Kathy will complete the repair within 108 days. No, 108 is the initial condition. That's A is incorrect. You can look at C and D. Both of them say a rate of 108. No, rate is the -23. So you can eliminate C, eliminate D. At that point, Kathy starts each week with 108. Yes, 108 is the intercept, the initial condition. Your answer is B. Okay, problem number 3, which of the following is equivalent to the expression above? And know that equivalent usually means simplify. So this time you can take a look, it will be combining like terms. And the only thing to make sure you don't get tripped up on is this minus sign right here. That minus sign will have to be distributed to everything in the second parentheses. So go ahead and start writing out your terms. Start with x squared y from the first parentheses, and that will be plus x squared y from the second parentheses. Remember, distributing that negative sign. You can go ahead and solve that one right there. So that will end up being 2x squared y. And this time, you can take a look, you can go over and look at what solutions you have available to you. It will have to have this 2x squared y term available. So you can eliminate A, it does not have that term available. You can eliminate B, it does not have that term available. That leaves you with only C and D. So let's continue on. At this point, you can say plus, what's the next terms we're going to look at? It'll be this 3y term. So you have negative 3y squared. Over here you have negative 3y squared, but again, distribute your negative sign. So what you'll have is negative 3y squared. It'll end up being plus 3y squared. Those two cancel each other out, meaning that's 0, meaning there will not be a y squared term in your solution. Go over and look at your solutions. This one does not have a y squared term. This one does. We cannot have it. D can be eliminated. At this point, it looks like C is your answer, but you can go ahead and finish out if you want to be sure and get that exact answer. So the last term you have to look at is this xy squared term. So you have 5, and then this is a positive xy squared, but distribute your negative. You have 5xy squared minus 3xy squared. That'll end up being 2. So this will be plus 2xy squared. And you can see that this indeed does match. And answer C is the correct answer. All right, problem number 3. Always ask what they're looking for based on the model. This is the model. What is the estimated increase in inches of a boy's height each year? They're looking for increase per year. Increase per year, which means they're looking for a rate. You can go up to your model and identify that this is the y equals mx plus b form of a line. And we know that in this form, b is the initial condition, m is the slope, the rate, and what they're asking for is the rate. So say the rate is 3, the rate is 3, and A is your correct solution. Problem number 7 starts out with this daunting looking equation at the top, but always go back to what is it they're actually looking for. And it's which of the following gives P, which means solve for P, in terms of M, R, and N, which means you can leave M, R, and N in your final solution. At this point, you can say, okay, if I can leave R and N, I can take this entire numerator, call it A, and I can take this entire denominator, and I can call that B. And that simplifies this to M is equal to A divided by B times P. And what we're looking to do is isolate P in this equation. So solve for P. That would be M times B, multiply both sides by B, is equal to A times P, divide both sides by A, M times B divided by A is equal to P. Now, if you look at the forms that your solutions take, M is at the end, it's something multiplied by M. So we'll go ahead and rearrange to make this look like that right now. And what we have is P is equal to B divided by A times M. And at this point, you can look and say, okay, I have B divided by A, which means my previous denominator divided by my previous numerator. Which of my solutions takes that form? You can eliminate C, you can eliminate D right off the bat. It does not take that form. And then you say A, it has the previous numerator still in the previous numerator. That cannot be correct. You can look at B and say, yes, the previous denominator is now in the numerator. The previous numerator is now in the denominator. B is your correct solution. Problem number 8, they're asking what is the value of 4b divided by a, which simply means solve 4b divided by a. You have essentially a system of equations here. You can write the first one, a divided by b is equal to 2. You multiply both sides by b to find a in terms of b. A is equal to 2b. take and plug that into your second equation. You're looking to solve for what is the value of 4b divided by a, which is now 2b, we just solved. You can see that you can eliminate the b. It's equal to 4 divided by 2, equal to 2, and that is answer C. Okay, problem number 9. What is the solution xy to the system of equations above? When you see a system of equations, it usually means solve one variable in one and plug it into the other. So we'll take 2y minus x is equal to negative 19 and solve that for x. So we'll have negative x, subtract 2y from both sides, with negative 19 minus 2y, multiply everything by negative 1. You'll have x is equal to 19 plus 2y. Plug that x back in the original equation, so you'll have 3 times 19 plus 2y plus 4y is equal to negative 23. Solve that out. 3 times 19, 60 times 3 minus 3, so that'll be 57, plus 6y plus 4y is equal to negative 23. Put terms on the same side. You'll have 10y, 6 plus 4 is equal to negative 23 minus 57. That will be negative 80. You can solve y is equal to negative 80 divided by 10 will be negative 8. And at this point you can see, okay, y has to be negative 8. Go over to your possible solutions. There's only one that has negative 8 as a solution. You don't have to go back and solve for x. You can say right there, B is the correct solution. Problem 10. What they're asking for is the value of this function here when x is equal to negative 4. And recognize what they're really giving you is a system of equations, because for the same function they're giving you when x is equal to 4, g of x is equal to 8. So we can write this as a system of equations. First, use the one that they have all the numbers given for you. Say that 8, g of x, g of 4 is equal to a 4 squared plus 24. And the second equation will be what we're looking to solve, this g of negative 4, which we'll just call y. Y is equal to a times we're looking for when x is equal to negative 4 squared plus 24. Okay, we'll go back and solve this equation for a so that we can plug a into our second equation. So we have that 8 is equal to 16 times a, that's 4 squared plus 24. Subtract 24 from both sides, you have negative 16 is equal to 16 times a. Divide both sides by 16, you're left with a is equal to negative 1. You can come back, plug that into your second equation. Y, what we're looking to solve, is equal to negative 1 times negative 4 squared, which is 16, plus 24. We have that y is equal to negative 16 plus 24. That means that y is equal to 8. And we see that that is available as a solution as A. Problem 11. What they're looking for is the price per pound of beef, which is this B, when it was equal to the price per pound of chicken, which is this C. But they're ultimately after the price per pound per beef. But because they say when it was equal to, it means you have to equate B equal to C. And the last part of these equations are X. And it's saying X weeks after July 1st during last summer. You can eliminate that after July 1st during last summer. It's not information you need. But this is saying when it was equal to the price per pound of chicken. That says make these two equations equal to one another. So you can have 2.35 plus 0.25x is equal to 1.75 plus 0.40x. Solve for x. That'll give us the week at which these two prices were the same. So 2.35 minus 1.75, that is 0.6. 0.4 minus 2.5, that's 1.5. 0.15x. 0.6 divided by 0.15, that will be equal to 4 is equal to x. So it happened at week 4 that this occurred. And what are we ultimately after? The price per pound of beef. So we can go back to our equation and say B equal to 2.35 plus 0.25 times it happened at week 4. That means that B is equal to 2.35 plus 1. That means that B is equal to 3.35. And we see we have that available. Correct answer is D. Problem number 12. What they're asking for is which of the following points of the answer options they give you lies on a line that they define above. And they've defined that line by both the slope and the intercept, the fact that it passes to the origin. So you can write this in standard y equals mx plus b form. Y is equal to slope 1 over 7x plus b intercept is 0. Now you could take and plug all of these different ones into this equation until you get one that works. And that would work out. A quicker way is to recognize that I have this slope of 1 over 7. That means rise over run, x is increasing much faster than y. So for positive numbers, which these all are, x always has to be larger than y. And just with that information, you can go back and say x is not larger than y for A, x is not larger than y, x is not larger than y. It has to be D because that's the only solution where the x is larger than the y. And that's your answer. Problem 13. Which of the following is equivalent, which in SAT terms is code for simplify, to this expression? So simplify this expression. And what you need to look at is what forms do the answers they want you to simplify into take. And you can identify that A and B both have a single numerator, single denominator. C and D have no denominator at all. The expression that we're coming from has a numerator, and then it has fractions within the denominator. And this is sort of a tricky problem. And what needs to be recognized is that you're able to multiply this expression by 1 and anything that equals 1. So to get rid of this x plus 2 in the denominator of the fraction in the denominator, you can put x plus 2 over x plus 2, and you can multiply, because that's equal to 1, you can multiply this entire expression by x plus 2 over x plus 2. Further, to get rid of this x plus 3, you can also, at the same time, multiply by x plus 3, x plus 3. And so all you have to do is multiply that out. And the numerator here is pretty easy because you're multiplying by 1. So basically this stays the same. You're left with x plus 2 times x plus 3. In the denominator, you have to multiply this entire expression by each of these terms individually. So we can go ahead with x plus 2, x plus 3 over x plus 2 plus, and now here's that second one, we have x plus 2 times x plus 3 divided by x plus 3. And now, after all that, we can get to the actual simplifying part. You can cross out this x plus 2 on this side and this x plus 3 on this side. And then we'll go ahead and rewrite that. We still have our numerator, x plus 2, x plus 3, divided by, now this has been simplified. We have x plus 3 plus x plus 2. We can simplify that further. In the denominator, it's the easiest because this is just add the x's, add the constants. And what we have there is 2x plus 5. Now at this point, the denominator is as simplified as we can get it. So we can go back and look at the forms of the equations we have. And we have to pick from C and D are not going to work because they don't have a denominator. A has a denominator with an x squared term. We do not have an x squared term. B, the denominator matches. And at this point, you can go ahead and conclude that B is your answer. But if you wanted to be 100% sure, and finish out your problem, you can do the multiplication on the numerator and go with x squared plus 2 times x plus 3 times x, and you will have 5x plus 2 times 3 is 6, and you see that that does indeed match the numerator in b, and so we can be confident that our answer is b. Problem 14, what they're looking for here is the value of this second expression given another expression. And I believe this is the trickiest problem on the whole practice test. And the reason why is that when you see these two, it's easy to identify this as a system of equations. It is a system of equations. And it's tempting to take this first expression, which is the easier of the two expressions, solve for either x or y, and plug into your second expression. But what you'll quickly find is that that doesn't give a satisfying answer. It's very difficult to get a satisfying answer in that way. And what it benefits to do is to take a look at what form do the answers take. And they are still written in exponent form. They're values, but they're in exponent form. 2 to the power of 12, 4 to the power of 4, 8 to the power of 2. And so what that signifies is it would benefit to simplify this expression before I go plugging into my original expression. So let's take a look at how to do that. Bring this over. You can rewrite this as 8 to the power of x times 2 to the power of negative y, because anything in the denominator, you can just use a negative in your exponent and get the same thing. You can say, okay, I need to get this either entirely in terms of base 2 or entirely in terms of base 8. You could look at, okay, how do I turn this 2 to the negative y into base 8? And that can be difficult because 8, to get back to this 2, you'd have 8 to the power of 1/3, and that would make this more complicated. So you can say, okay, how do I get this into base 2? And recognize that 8 to the power of 1, and there's an x riding along there, is equal to 2 to the power of 3. Because 2 to the power of 3 is 2 times 2 times 2 is equal to 8. 8 to the power of 1 is 8. So you can take that and plug it back into your original expression, and you get 2 to the power of 3x times 2 to the power of negative y. The next thing to recognize is that when you have the same base, exponents are simply addition. So you can take, and this is equal to 2 to the power of 3x minus y. And here's where it pays off to have simplified before plugging in your expression. Because now in your exponent you have 3x minus y, which is exactly the other expression you're given. So 3x minus y is 12. So you can forget about x and y and just turn that directly into 12. So you have 2 to the power of 12. And you can see that that is answer A. Problem 15. What they're looking for here are the two possible values of C, where C is given in this expression at the top, and they also give you a second expression to solve for A and B. So that makes this a system of equations problem. And where to begin on this problem, you have at the top, how do we get this solved in terms of C? Well, first you have this expressed two different ways on each side. Here you have an x squared plus x plus constant expression. On the left side, you have a factored expression. The first thing to do is to put these into the same form. On the right, is there any way to factor this? Not easily because of that c. So you look at the left, we'll multiply these through to get that x squared term plus x plus constant form to move forward into the solution. So we'll start with ax plus 2, bx plus 7. And multiplying through, multiply first, that will give you abx squared plus 7ax plus 2bx plus 14 is equal to the entire expression on the right side of your original equation, 15x squared plus cx plus 14. At this point, it's important to recognize that because we have the x squared term in that first term here and here, we can say that abx squared is equal to 15x squared, and you can cross out that first term. which means that AB is equal to 15. Combine that with the other expression we were given in the initial problem, A plus B is equal to 8, which means that you can solve this to be B is equal to 8 minus A. Plug that back in. This will give you A times 8 minus A is equal to 15. Multiply that through, you have 8A minus A squared is equal to 15. Put these all on one side of the equation to make it equal to 0. That'll allow you to factor and solve for A. So we have A, or 0, is equal to, let's move the A squared term, A squared minus 8A plus 15. Okay, now figure how to factor this. You have 0 is equal to, you'll have A, and then some expression, and then you'll have A, and some. You'll need to find what values multiply to come to 15, and also add up to be 8. So in this case, your only option there is 5 and 3. So you'll have 5 and 3. And they have to add up to be positive, but your middle term is negative, which means that you will have both of these as negative numbers, and that is your factored expression, which means that for this to be true, for this to equal 0, A minus 5 has to be equal to 0, and A minus 3 has to be equal to 0, which means that your two possible values of A is equal to either 5 or 3. Now, to use that information, you can go back to how before we used that x squared term, we can do the same thing now using the x term. And we'll bring that over here and say that 7ax plus 2, and we're going to go ahead and substitute in for that b right now. And we'll say that b before where we solved is equal to 8 minus a is equal to cx. So at this point, let's solve through. We can say that, oh, and there's an x there, of course. You can remove your x's. I have 7a plus 16 minus 2a is equal to c. That means that 5a plus 16 is equal to c. Now, we have that as simplified as we can. Let's go ahead and plug in one of our values of a up here to find our value of c. So we'll say 5 times 3 plus 16 equal to c. That means that we now have 15 plus 16 equal to c, which means that 31 is one value of c, and the other value can be found by instead plugging in for a, plug in the 5. But since we have this c is equal to 31 in our answers, only one of them has a possibility of 31. So at this point, we can conclude that D is our correct answer. Okay, problem 16. What is the value of t? Simply solve for t. So we have t squared minus 4 is equal to 0, so add 4 to both sides. T squared is equal to 4. T is equal to plus or minus the square root of 4, which means that t is equal to plus or minus 2. Because the problem states that t is greater than 0, t is equal to 2. Problem 17, and what they're looking for is the value of x on the picture above. And they give a bunch of information in the text about the picture that you need to know how to fill in. Basically, that the length, when they say AB, they're talking about this length here is 1800, and that when they give you two letters, it means the length between those two letters. EB is 1400 feet, BD is 700 feet, CD is 800 feet. The other thing they give you is that these two angles are the same, And then one principle they're testing you on is that because these right here are vertical triangles, vertical angles, these two are also equivalent. They don't call that out in the text, but it's something you need to know from geometry. These two are similar, which means that these triangles have the same angles on their sides. And because of that, the two triangles are proportional, which means that the proportion of all the lengths of all the sides are proportional. So you can write this out as the length of BD divided by the length of EB is equal to the length of DC divided by the length of AE, which is really what we're after because this is equal to X. So we have 700, 1400 is equal to 800 divided by X. And you can go through and solve that, or if you want to save a little bit of time, you can look at it and know that, okay, these triangles are proportional. 700 divided by 1400. 700 is half of 1400, which means that X is going to be twice 800 over here, and that X is equal to 1600 feet. You'll get the same thing if you solve through on that equation. Okay, problem 18. This is a straight system of equation problem looking for the value of X. No fancy paragraph to try to confuse you, which is nice. So start with the first one. You're looking for X, so arrange the first in terms of Y. So you have Y is equal to -9 minus X. Plug that first equation into the second equation. You have X plus 2 times -9 minus X is equal to -25. Multiply through. X minus 18 minus 2x is equal to -25. Negative x minus 18, I'll just write it out, is equal to -25. Add 18 to both sides. You have negative x is equal to -7. Adding 18, multiply both sides by -1. X is equal to 7, and that is your answer. Problem 19. They're looking for what is the cosine of 90 minus x on a right triangle. And it's a problem where it's a geometry problem where they don't give you a picture, so I always recommend drawing yourself a picture for geometry problems. We use the fact it's a right triangle, draw the best right triangle we can. 90-degree angle in one corner, call this corner X. Because it's a triangle, triangle sums to 180, which means that this corner will be 90 minus X. And we know from the problem that the sine of the x angle is 4 over 5. And sine of x is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So we can write in, this is the opposite angle, opposite over hypotenuse. And now we can go back and we know that cosine is equal to, this is the angle we're looking for the cosine on, adjacent, it's already 90 minus x, adjacent 4 over hypotenuse 5, which means that the answer here, the cosine minus x, is equal to 4 over 5. If you're comfortable with thinking about these sines and cosines in terms of a wave, you may also think 90 degrees offset sine and cosine. They're at the equivalent position on that wave. Either way, you get the same answer. It's equivalent. Bubble in 4 over 5. Okay, problem 20. They're asking for the value of x and giving you what is effectively a system of equations where a is just a value. So you can take your value of a, plug it straight into your second equation. You will have 2 times 5 square root 2 is equal to square root 2x. You then multiply out through this 2, 10 square root 2 is equal to square root 2x. The key to this problem is recognizing here you can square both sides, which will leave you with 10 squared square root of 2 squared is equal to square root 2x squared, which means that the square roots and the exponents cancel. You'll be left with 100 times 2 is equal to 2x. The 2's cancel, and you'll be left with x is equal to 100.